I did want to reach back out to you because we were curious about, how things were going. We talked to you about, oh, I would say a month and a half ago.
Man, it was a while
Right.
ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, and something like that. I would assume it's December 20th. So I would say about a month and a half ago, right around November 1st, you started up a program in Mississippi. So how's it been? And you said you had some questions, so
Well,
I'm
let's
here.
let's say yeah, first off, well, thank you to having me on last time, right? And at the time I was running a nice little fundraiser, and I just want to say thank you to anybody that's listening that had contributed because that was huge, right? Um, it was a massive fundraiser. We raised enough money to purchase a mat. So um, I have
That's awesome.
my own mat coming for the first time. I can get off this rented and borrowed one that is like it says Virginia on it. I really don't know if it's actually a Virginia mat, but it's Virginia colors. It's like falling apart. It's hard as a rock. But it's
Like University of Virginia
yeah,
colors?
yeah.
Okay.
It's got what blue and orange.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it has a little sword, and it says Virginia all over it, and
Wow.
it's kind of interesting. So actually, yeah, we got a mat coming that'll be coming in February from Dollarmer.
So what kind of mat did you get? You got the like the foam ones?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you have like a place that you get to like roll it out, or do you have like a room? What type of situation are you training in?
So that's been everywhere too, right? So we started out when we first met. We practiced in a baseball indoor baseball field. So it's on a turf room, and so we roll up every day. We roll it on, unroll it and roll up every day, and that's kind of annoying a little bit because you get those little pellets all over your stuff all
Yeah.
the time. So we were in there for a while. In volleyball season, they actually have a volleyball facility for itself, just standalone volleyball. Really nice facility, and that was a part of like Brett Favre when he was here. His daughters are at the school, and uh, they raised enough money to kind of build one. And
Yeah.
so we actually moved in there. It's been kind of nice. It's like its own separate gym, and we've been in there now for about a month or so. But we have to get move again here after the first year to like another little turf room. Um,
So you were so like what's the school's name? Like you're in Hattiesburg,
in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That's correct. Oak Grove High School.
Oak Grove High School.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to move around. So how has that been? How have you been dealing with the fact that, you got to move around in the off season at Belvedere when I was in high school after we lost the wrestling room, we had to pull the mats out and move them around everywhere.
I didn't
So
know
how's it
that.
been with
Wait,
the team though?
so wait, Belvedere lost the mat room? You guys had no more wrestling?
Yeah, so when I was in eighth grade, we had a wrestling room. I don't know if you remember. It was like it was narrow. It was pretty cool. It was like really nice wrestling room. The following year, my freshman year, they converted that wrestling room into a cafeteria and
Hmm.
moved us back into the 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 big gym. It was called the carpet gym at the time because it was carpeted. Um, and then during the off season, we would have to roll up mats every night. And well, actually during high school season, we left the mats out, but we'd slide them all the way down, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, during the off season, I remember pulling like a couple sections out and putting it in like the walkway from the one gym to the next gym. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was not ideal. The first year was awesome, and then obviously after that we just had to improvise. But how's it been for you with
Um,
yeah.
well, actually, I do recall actually working out in the spring and the summertime. We would go around different high schools and roll the mats out in Belvedere to get in some
Yeah.
practices. But it's been actually, it's been all right. It's just kind of a little bit of a headache, right? It brings me way back to like my first few years of wrestling, and we have to roll them up in the lunchroom and with the Harlem Cougars, and it just takes up time. It's time consuming because I don't work at the school. So I have to travel, get home, change, and get there in order to mop on time, right? And it's also a hassle if you want to mop after practice, uh, because it just takes time for them to dry. So it's not really convenient, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's terrible, right? And then it's just like we got to move for everything, no matter where it is. Just having to relocate 3 times is not really fun with the big old classic mat. Grateful the whole time. So don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
take it right. But we thought we had a little home with the volleyball facility, but the percussion band now practices in there after January, so we gotta scoot out. And the next
Yeah.
little area is more narrow than it is wide, so I think the mats are gonna probably roll up on the wall a little bit, because they're not quite wide enough. So we'll figure that out as we get there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, isn't this ironic? Like, that wrestling is you started a wrestling program, and a lot of people think of wrestling as just the mats or just wrestling on the mats, but really wrestling is like a way in which you respond to adversity, how you deal with like the chaos of life. And this is just one of those moments where, wrestlers by our nature, right, we figure it out, right?
yeah,
Successful wrestlers are people who adapt and overcome whatever challenge is thrown their way. So it's like, it's, I don't want to say it's ironic, but in some weird irony that they are, you're presented challenges, every single day, even if it was perfect. But in this situation, um, they're, these, these are the challenges,
yeah,
right? To find gratitude
yeah,
in starting a program, but also know that there's such a ways to go to get to the place where you might want to get to.
that's right. And yeah, that's it. This is a sport where you just kind of, you know, tie your shoes up and get to work. It doesn't matter where it is. We'll roll those mats out wherever we got to go. In other
Yeah.
sports, it's probably like, we're like, no, dude, you can give me a hallway. I'll line them
Yeah.
up. Like, I'll make it work. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, if it was summertime, we'll go out on the field. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, the program, it's been good. It's been, I can't believe it's really moving fast. I think any wrestling season moves faster than you think. So it's one of the most blessing, like experiences I've ever had. Our first home meet was the first meet of the whole season. Uh, I opened it up to the students for free. I just said, "Hey, I don't want to charge anybody. I want to pack it like as many kids as I can get in that gym and just make it a great experience." And it was probably one of the coolest dual meets I've ever been a part of. It was just packed. The fans showed up. The student section showed up
Yeah.
with cowbells, with freaking stuffed animals, chicken. I don't even know what animals they had, dude. They were so loud. At one point, we wrestled two other teams, and we finished 2-0. And they've never seen wrestling, so they just ate it up, dude. Like
Yeah.
the first little slam is like, whoa! Chase is going crazy. This kid's on his back, then they're on their back, and it's like I was talking to Zach Inderly about this, but really the wrestling down here is like do or die. It's like you're either pin or
Yeah.
pinned. It's like I had to tell my kids, you do know there's a way to lose, and it's by points, right? And it actually helps our
Yeah.
team. It's not either pin or be pinned. But this crowd was just going nuts, and they were so enjoyable and so loud that they had to call over like the school administrator, the other team's coach, asked the ref if he can have him calm down, and they don't know what's going on half the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So like a forfeit, right? And they're just trash talking, like, "Oh, you're scared, you're scared." And
Yeah.
I think they got in his head. They got in his head. They got in the bench's head. They got in all the kids' head. And then
And they
after,
asked,
huh?
wow. And they asked to calm them down.
Yeah, I think some end up, So I asked the official after the head official. I was like, "So, Aaron, what was said? Like, I want to make sure I address it, right? If they're not being good fans, then let's talk about it." He goes, "Dude, I wouldn't change a thing." He said,
Yeah.
he said, "That was great. I wouldn't change one thing. I'd put them right where you had them, right next to their bench. I wouldn't move them over there." He goes, "They didn't do anything wrong. They were just, I
Yeah.
think they were getting beat.
Yeah.
Coach was hearing about it and kind of got fed up." So,
So, yeah, yeah. Tell me, sorry.
I mean, it was
How
just
did
like,
those guys do?
but yeah, just the whole experience was amazing, dog. It was like probably the coolest thing I've been a part of because they've never seen it. And up north, you go to duels all the time. It's nothing, right? But there's something special about some of the duels up north, like going into
Yeah.
East for the first time and wrestling under those lights and all that stuff is like some of the cool things you do. The kids, so we wrestled two other high schools, one out of Jackson, Mississippi, and the other one somewhere by the coast. But uh, what do you expect from a first year program and first time out there? They exceeded the expectations, definitely. Except the second duel meet started out so bad. Beat the better team. The second
Yeah.
team, all of a sudden we come out, and actually, I think half the student section left. They just thought it was like one meet, and that was it. Um, we started 30-0. We started down 30-0, and I was enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, like I found myself like, what in the hell? Like, what is happening? Like, just like so mad. I'm like, dude, we just got pinned 5 times in a row. Like, what is happening? I am not about to lose this team. This team, I don't even know. Like, I'm not losing. Like, it's like this is gonna be pathetic.
Well, it sounds like, and from my perspective, like it sounds like one, I mean, let's just say the wrestling back home isn't necessarily always the way that you remember it, right? I posted some results last night from Byron versus Oregon, and there was one match that wasn't a pin or a forfeit. So, I mean, you
Yeah,
you know, seasons come and go pretty quick, and talent can come and go pretty quick too. When I was coaching, Hananiga at the time didn't have a very good team, and we were, it was pins left and right. It was like a JV tournament or JV match, but ultimately now they have a real solid team. So it's like, no matter where you think, um, what your expectations are. Sometimes as a coach, like, from my perspective, I've always sat back and just smiled when wrestling wasn't
yeah,
as pure as I wanted it to be. But
yeah,
because as long as people are competing hard, I
yeah.
think that's the fun experience, is like watching people really understand what wrestling can bring out of you, is like that real, like, competitive, like, I got this, right?
Yeah.
Like, even though they don't have it, but
Ah,
they put on the line, and they get on the line, and they're like, come on, let's go, because it is that fight that, yeah, it's just funny.
so like, and I agree with that actually. And Zach said that too. He goes, you're not alone in that regard. There's kids getting pinned all over the place. And I'm like, I guess
Yeah,
you're right. But as an example, so the second one, we started out down 0 to 30, and then we pinned all the rest of the kids, and we beat them 54 to 30.
yeah,
It was like, what in the heck? And
yeah.
we wrestled 12 out of the 14 matches, and the total time I counted it up was like 18 minutes of actual on the mat was 18 minutes or less.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah,
17 and a half minutes of total wrestling out of 12 matches. That's how long it lasted. Um, but what was I say? No, it's pretty cool. And going back to like the experience of it all, and I think one of my favorite parts and like one of the most memorable was watching some of the kids that's the first time they ever competed. And definitely
yeah,
something as hard as wrestling and as much as it takes to go out there by yourself, right? So as we're walking out, we're in one of the area, one of the kids said, Coach, he smiles, he goes, Look, I know I lost, but I'm super proud of myself. He's like, I am so proud of myself. He's like, I had to I went out there and did something that I never thought I would do. It took a lot to even go out there. He goes, I learned a lot. And he smiled. And he's like, I'm proud. And
yeah,
I'm like, that's the best feeling, right?
yeah.
So,
What's What I was gonna say though about that is, when I talked to you earlier when I was at Chipotle, um, a father of a wrestler from Belvedere was right behind me in the line. And so when I got off the phone with you, I started talking to him, and he brought up the idea that his son used to struggle with, um, anxiety around wrestling, and now he's like getting confident. And I was explaining, like, wrestling is such an interesting sport because it brings out the polarity of our personality. And like I explained, like when I was in middle school, I used to get so nervous that I would like throw up before my matches. But then by the time I was a senior, I was so confident that I thought I was invincible. And
yeah.
it's like wrestling is just such a beautiful, like, I don't know, sometimes it's not beautiful, but obviously it brings out the confidence that so many, kids don't have. They don't get it. They don't have something in their life that brings it out. And wrestling is just that one-on-one thing that can really, really bring out confidence. And that's why I love the sport, because so many people I know that struggle with things, it's almost entirely because they lack the self-belief that they can. And wrestling brings that out. So
I
yeah,
see it
I
every
mean that.
day. It,
Yeah,
and see it every day. Every kid, I'm just watching them grow and mature and like believe in themselves. Um, it's tough to win. It's taken some of them 8 to 10 matches before they tasted victory. And it was like, was it worth it? And they're like, it was worth it. And then it's like
yeah,
watching them do that. Like, how did they keep coming back? Like, you forget those
yeah,
times that you just took your licks, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't even remember what I did my first year, but I'm sure I took it, right? I
yeah,
do remember practice. And even in practice, it was like, I hated losing a king of the mat. and just taking it over and over and over. But seeing them go 8 to 10 matches and getting that first win, it was like that's the payoff, and you're seeing them progress. So like as a team, we're growing, right? And we've traveled around. I've tried to make the schedule where uh we've seen every school that we could see in Mississippi. That way I know where we stand. And it's amazing to get compliments everywhere we go. These guys are kind of blown away. These other coaches are like, hey, look at the size of your team. And they're like, you guys look so good. And I'm like, it's hard to see, but it's like
Yeah.
so good. And they're like, you look so good. And I'm like, looking, and you do, I believe it too, right? But like looking at team score, it's like you're not quite at the top. You're not like where you could be. And you see where,
Yeah.
but we know we're doing something right. We know it. It's coming off.
Yeah.
Like you guys have only been practicing 2.5 months. I'm like, 2 months, man. And they're like, I can't, it's unreal. So
So you coming to the Dvorak next year?
yeah, never. It'd be cool. I
No,
actually wanted to talk
that
about
would
the
be
Dvorak.
super cool.
You know
That
what?
would be
Like
super cool.
honestly, I would love to bring a team eventually. We just competed this past weekend, and there's some teams from Alabama and Louisiana, so it was nice to see outside of Mississippi. Right when you get
Yeah.
out the coast, there's some schools down there that have had success so far, and they invite a lot of those programs out. So we actually had a school out of Louisiana that won the last tournament. They just had some kids that wrestled. They knew what they're doing. They put some licking on them, and actually one of my best kid on the team, and he's at 165. It took his little first loss in the finals. He needed it. It's okay. I think we learned. It was a close match, and it wasn't something he did wrong. It was just like that kid's been practicing with some cute kids.
Yeah.
I saw Matt Race.
Okay.
So his dad moved down to Mississippi. My old teammate Matt.
Yeah, I know.
Uh, his dad lives in Mississippi. So when I went to a tournament up in Oxford, I said, "Hey Earl, I'd love for you to come out." And that was one of the best feelings too, right? I hadn't seen
Yeah.
Earl in a decade, so I couldn't wait to
That's
greet him
funny.
at the door, give him a wrestling shirt, watch some wrestling with him, hang with him. It was like being back at home. He's like, "Man, this is so cool," and
Yeah.
he's in love with it. So that was really rewarding. I had some girls. I have 4 girls now. One kind of stopped. They won the tournament. I had a couple girls get first, second, third. They all placed. Uh,
Now, is that in boys or do they have separate divisions now
girls
too?
against
Yeah.
girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hey, good things, man.
Yeah. So what do you think, what do you think you've learned and obviously like what do you think that you've maybe are trying to figure out, right? Like,
First, I realized I don't know all the rules. Like rules are tough, right? They change all the time. So
well, rules are also, um,
interpretive,
Well,
subjective.
not just that. Rules are obviously. So I was at a tournament. I was at the Dvorak this weekend, and I was watching, and one ref. Um, so one match, I was watching. A kid pushed the guy out of bounds, and then the ref called stalling on the guy who pushed him out of bounds. And then I watched another match, and the guy who got pushed out of bounds got hit for stalling. And I'm like, "What are you guys doing?"
Dude,
And then obviously, I talked to Terry Giardini a lot recently, and he's like, oh, we need to have one rule set. So it'd be a lot easier to just, college and high school and stuff like that. So yeah, rules are annoying because I imagine that the way that they're interpreted in certain states of experience, whatever. It's just, yeah, I mean, yeah,
so that's been one of my big learning curves. So I had to actually go by the rule book, right? And so I'm going through it all again and just trying to check it. But even that is like, all right, for instance, it pisses me off. Stalling. Stalling is like that whole situation you just explained. I don't get it. And it's so
yeah,
like frustrating because I don't know what's you want to have something consistent. So even the
yeah,
kid in the final that lost, like I'll go back to my kid at 165. His name's Jaron, right? And the tournament's not here, and it's not saying a whole lot. And he's working so hard, but he's the top guy at his weight. He's top dog at one, and he should win it. We'd expect him to win it. And he got called for stalling from top. But, we're in referee's position. The guy gets up, and he's fighting him, and the guy literally runs off the mat, and he's following him, and he's like holding him. He's trying to return, and the ref said he ran him out of bounds. So when it's a scores table, I go, dude, they're just wrestling. They were in, they were wrestling. He didn't run them off the mat, right? So we get warned for stalling. And I'm thinking, dude, we've taken 30 shots. That guy's done nothing but sprawled. You haven't called him for anything, but we get called for that. Okay. And I kind of started a debate with them about a different rule I'll get into about stalling. But I didn't know shoelaces is a violation these days. So Illinois, right? We tape our shoelaces. Is that still a rule?
Well, now I don't actually think you have to. I think you get called for stalling if you have to if you have to stop and tie your shoe,
I didn't know
it's
that.
stalling.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have to do it anymore.
So I learned
I
that.
don't think so.
I learned
Again,
that.
I mean, the thing about that is it was a rule in a situation one year, and then they changed the rule. So if you're not paying attention, the rules change
I
fairly
thought it was
quickly.
injury time at one point.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if you went out at one point, if you went out without your shoelaces taped, it was an injury time and you had to, and the clock started. But I think right now you don't have to actually tie your shoelaces or not tie them. I don't think that you
Hey,
have to tape them.
well, we will be taping ours because the guy,
Wasting tape.
I didn't know that
Yeah,
rule existed, man. I never in my life thought
yeah.
to check that as a rule. So my
Yeah,
kid's
and
down by a little bit. He gets to the line. There's 20 seconds left. His shoe's been untied. And he looks at the ref and says, "Can I tie my shoe?" And the ref, dude, there's a second stall. Gave up a point. Stalling. What? What in the,
well,
like, what?
Well, don't you get frustrated? So one of the things that I get frustrated, especially when wrestling is at a very low level, right? So like obviously we're talking about situations where stalling isn't even interpreted by the kid because they don't actually fully know. They're not wrestling,
Oh my
right? Like
God. Yeah.
they're just wrestling in a chaotic way. So it's like, why would you call anybody for stalling? Just let them figure it out because they're not even at a level that stalling should matter in the match, anyways,
Oh,
right? Like when two, high level competitors are competing against each other, now stalling comes into play because one's avoiding action because they're trying to win the match. Whereas like when you're watching less skilled, they don't have a clue what's going on. So why would you stop the competition to, you know, create a like again it's kind of like locked hands in the little kids like at 8 and under you're gonna just sit here and just keep calling locked hands over and over again,
yeah.
just let them
You gotta let
wrestle,
it go.
who
You gotta
cares
break it
who.
off, talk to them.
Yeah, just let them go. Just
I feel like they should
whatever.
let it go in Mississippi. That's like a big offense. Like, but
Yeah,
thing that bothers me was this. What's your interpretation? So you're in referee's position. The bottom guy comes to his feet. At what point is it stalling?
I think it's the 5 seconds.
Mm-mm. That's a myth. There's no time. My
There's
kid got
not.
to his feet. It's 10 seconds in. I go, is it not stalling? And the ref just looks at me. Now he's on his feet for 25. I go, Trent, it's been 25 seconds. Are we not stalling? And he just keeps looking at me. I'm like, dude, I
Yeah,
can't fucking win. You can't challenge him, right? So I'm not gonna like. I'm like,
yeah.
this is. So he after the match, he comes up to me and explains to me. He goes, there is actually a time, and it's a minute and 59 seconds. They go the whole
Wait,
period. He says the rules say as long as you're as long as he's actively trying to bring him
I feel
back
like we
down,
should look that up.
as long as
Oh,
you're actively
actively.
trying to bring him back down, then that's fine. Like
But that's an
I'm,
interpretation, obviously, because
but
um
there's no rule in there that says 5 to 6 seconds. I go, no,
yeah.
Trent. The rule is you get 5 seconds, and if you have to make a decision, you either cut them or you take the stall. If you're an idiot,
Yeah,
you get the stall and then you let them away. So that's
yeah.
how the rule works. He goes, that's not how the rule is. I go, anywhere else in America, that's the rule. So I emailed them after the meet. Like I like the officials, but they're all new too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna let up on certain things. I just like want to communicate with it because I'm gonna if that's an important match, you can't be on your feet for 25 seconds, right? So I emailed them and I'm like, here's my biggest problem is you guys calls on stalling. What you do and what you don't call. You're not consistent. I go, but if you come to your feet, you got 5 seconds. You better return them. And I said,
Yeah.
that's at national tournaments. You can look at it. I said, go look anywhere else. Let's use a big tournament or even college. If you don't, you're gonna get called. And then I'm on my way to a tournament. I'm watching the Ironman, right? And just happened to match, just found a match. Kid gets to his feet. Here's 6 seconds. I go, I
Yeah.
knew it. Next match, same thing. I go, that's how it works.
Did you send it to them?
I don't remember who the kid was.
Well, I mean, you
but
you
I'm
can
going
definitely
to
go find.
find
Yeah,
it.
you can find matches. I would encourage you definitely find examples, and I don't know if they use the National Federation, like what rule set. Like I would
Yeah,
assume
that's what we
it's a
use.
little the National Federation.
Yep.
Yeah, I would imagine that they're just misinterpreting it, or they don't have enough experience. Again, you gotta figure out how to educate officials well, and again, that's a struggle not just there. I mean, you're talking in the conference, Nick 10 conference. I can tell you, I've had this conversation again with Terry about there are a lot of people who are officials and they're not actually um, improving or getting criticism from people in a superior position. Just coaches get mad, and so
Yeah.
they don't care, because if a coach is mad, they don't really like listen to a coach.
Yeah.
So like Terry Giardini, he actually goes around and does evaluations for the NCAA officials.
Yeah.
Um, and we've been talking about the idea that somehow there needs to be an evaluation process so that younger officials or less experienced officials at the lower level can not just get yelled at by coaches, but get criticism and feedback from
Yeah.
people who can make them better. Because obviously, as coaches, we get very upset when we can't predict how the ref is going to call a match,
Yeah.
because now we can't coach accordingly, because we don't know how you're going to interpret whatever rule whenever they want to do it. So,
I
um,
explained that to him.
yeah,
I agree 100%. That's how I kind of put it in there. And I explained that to him. I said, look, and they actually, I would say this, like they're good dudes and they're all trying. We don't have a lot of
yeah,
officials, right? We only have a handful, a couple up north, some down south. And the head official is a great dude. And he actually says at the beginning of every meet, he has a speech and he's like, you guys are watching them. You see the refs for a split second. He goes, but I'm always watching them. They're always being evaluated. We have meetings. They do that evaluation all the time. He's like, these guys are constantly getting evaluated. We welcome feedback so we can, if you have a rule, we're not going to change it on the middle. It doesn't matter if you show a video at the mat, it's not going to get something called overturned, right? But it's something you can send to them and they can look into for the future. So they do evaluate, which is nice. But I think, like in my mind, I'm like, you guys are so new. I don't know what the head official's experience is, but it'd be nice if you had somebody from out of state that would come, right? Like bring a Giardini down that has some of these years of experience and kind of maybe it could be two people to a mat, two refs to a mat for a while, one that has some experience and these newer guys to help them out a little bit, right? And just see, are you aligned with how that rule is enforced everywhere else? Because I explained to him too, I go, we're not doing any good in Mississippi if we look at this rule one way and we go out of state. And I said, I actually have to coach according to this way. Like it affects my coaching.
yeah,
I can't, I'm telling my kid, you're either going to cut them or you're going to take that warning. That's in my head. And as an athlete, we've been trained that way. I got to either, I'm going to stand up and not let them return me, or I'm going to escape and I know what to expect. And so I said, I have to strategize around that. And I can't rely on whether you guys think he is trying to. I said, there's nobody in America that's trying to bring somebody down more than a college kid or a
yeah,
national tournament. They're trying to bring the kid down. But you
yeah,
get 25 seconds, unacceptable, dude. I mean,
yeah,
unacceptable.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
that's one of them. I had to learn the hard road on the shoelaces. I cost my kid a point at a crucial time. That's my fault, right? Um,
I just sent you I just sent you a video where, so this is actually cool. I mic'd up Terry Giardini at the Belvedere versus Hananiga duel.
yeah.
And basically I'm telling you, he is so much fun, because Hananiga outmatched Belvedere by, they beat him, I don't know, something like 56-12 or something. It was a really one lopsided duel. But Terry was so engaged, and he's, at the end of his career, and he's still so engaged with the reffing and talking to the athletes, hey, Mr.
Oh, he says your name every
Lozdoski,
time.
yeah.
Oh, every
So
time.
I genuinely think he's one of the best that's ever done it. And so I just sent you in the email a link of him
Oh,
mic'd up. So I think it's an epic example of how somebody can engage the match and call it, and just communicate. Because what he does a lot too is he'll say, um, you know, wrestler wrestler A, you got to let him do this. You got to let him do this. Like he's actually like explaining how he's like calling the match. So it's a good video.
Is that for
So
the whole
check it out.
meet? You have it?
Yeah, I did it for the whole meet, but
You can watch
the
the
thing,
matches too?
yeah, the thing that I sent you is just a highlight. I think it's like 10 minutes or something like that, but I could post. I have the whole duel, obviously, but I didn't I didn't upload the
Yeah.
whole duel. I just posted the highlights, but yeah, it's good. You'll like it. And you can send it to those guys and
Oh,
they'll definitely be like, "Oh, this guy's awesome." And again, something like what you're suggesting, if you could get him down to help out or even doing it online. So one thing that I want to figure out how to do, and this could be something cool, is I could go to a school or a gym or something and actually do a digital like seminar with Terry or something and and you guys, people could access it. So
yeah.
I've been thinking about stuff like that.
And mentioning that too, like, right. So a lot of these guys stream these meets. Some of the other coaches stream them. You could probably just like NFL, right? You got somebody that's off in another office that's watching.
Yeah.
You could even do that, as a set up a couple mats that are just, hey, these are streamed and they're watched from some rest from somewhere else. And
Yeah.
they're there to assist from a distance, like give feedback at the end, meet with
Yeah.
the head official and say, Aaron, what did you think about it? And like talk about it. Maybe if they're not meeting. So maybe I'll propose some of that because I've been really patient with them. I've been really good with them. I got to work with them. I enjoy them, but
Yeah.
I've been very blunt with them. We've had a meeting about that stalling call and the feet gets me. And they came over to me and they said, Brandon, the one that did it, he remembers it.
Well,
And he said, I thank you for sending it. We're very cordial about it. And then, Aaron, even the head official, we talked about this last tournament. He goes, I didn't mean to not email you back or respond. He goes, we did talk about it. We did review it. Thank you. And he goes, but I just want you to let you know you're wrong. And I said, listen, Aaron, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you again. And you're wrong. And
well,
you're never
this
going
is
to,
the
huh?
yeah, I'm just saying this is the hard part about officials and like who has the authority, who's actually in control,
And I
right?
said that.
And
I said, hey, but in the end, you're
yeah,
wrong, but it's your rules. So now I got
yeah,
to play by them. So I'm
yeah,
willing to work with you. Like I give him the crap back, like, dude, but I get it.
yeah, yeah,
So like, you know what he does in the matches, right? So you better believe
yeah,
later he sees my kid and he's on his feet and I'm looking at him and I'm like, my kid's stalling.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He just looked at me and goes, and I'm like, no, I get what you're,
yeah.
but dude, he's not like, you can call him. I'm okay with it.
Well, that's the funny thing is that one thing that's always bothered me when I've coached is like, when I get in arguments with some officials, it's always been like, listen, I'm a Division 1 wrestler.
I said the same, man. Yeah.
It's like, what are you're telling me I don't know what wrestling is, and it's bothering me a lot because you actually don't know wrestling, and yet you're just telling me because you're in a position of authority that you're the like, okay. And again, this is how I've gotten to, my last couple of years of coaching the high school.
Yeah.
I very, very rarely cared about good calls, bad calls. I just sat in the corner and cheered on the kid, made sure, because a lot of these kids, especially when they're, just getting started, um, they're not very emotional as far as like
Yeah.
about like whether or not they're gonna win or they're just going hard. So when the ref calls them for stalling, they don't even know what stalling even
I have no
means.
idea what to do different.
Yeah,
They
they're just gonna continue to wrestle, in a wild, chaotic way. So you
don't even know
gotta,
when it's to an advantage to them. Oh, he got
yeah,
hit.
yeah,
They don't know what that.
yeah,
They don't
yeah.
know to
So
like go fake some shots or go do nothing different. Like,
yeah, so it's always important to remember that they're not you yet, and if you get a highly if you get a high competitive like a real competitive match between two really high level competitors, the officials have to be prepared for that. But
yeah,
I also think that if you're just getting started with your program, as your program continues to get better, so will officials just because
we're
of
seeing better wrestling.
yeah, it's like it's a natural, I think, process, I think. Um and yeah, so it's one of the things that you got to learn how to deal with.
I get along with them, man. Like I'm too old. I'm not like here to fight with them
Yeah.
about it. I really like you just said, like I have the same perspective. In the end, I look at them right, and there's been matches where they've made some goofy calls, and I'm like looking at them like, and then my kid gets pinned, and I just
Yeah.
look at him and go, in the end, it didn't matter, did it, Trent? And he's like, And I'm like, you're
Yeah.
right. Like he was
Yeah.
winning by 3, somehow got rolled over there. This
Yeah.
happened, that happened. But in the end, it was like the result
Yeah.
wasn't changed that much. Like we just kind
Yeah.
of laugh about the stuff, like, and I work with them. But I am like, I
Yeah.
kind of approach it like I'm not here to say like I do have a perspective that I feel like carries weight to them. I just want to let you know, like, I'm sharing this feedback, not because I think I'm like the best at something or like, but I've had
Yeah. Yeah.
experience. I've lived in 3 states that are some of the best, right? Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio. I've competed at the highest levels of NCAAs you can get to. Like, I've done this for a long time. For you to tell me that you have 25 seconds on your feet is absurd. Like, absurd. I'll never get over that one. That was like one of the shots. So
Yeah.
I'm working through it.
Good.
But other than that, um, yeah,
Well,
man.
that's good.
I,
That's good.
uh, I just gotta know, like, I wonder when you got to come down. When are you gonna make it down? I got a couple weeks left. They could use a couple training sessions with Dalton Bullard in person.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, the season's chaotic. I've been trying to do a lot of media stuff for the area. The Dvorak just finished up, which was good. I'm so happy that the Dvorak is in the area. It brings a high level event to the area that needs it. Like our area is just not that good right now.
Huh? Yeah.
Hananiga did really well. They had one champ. I think five others placed, so they did really well. Hananiga's they're in a great position this year as far as team. Rocco Cassiope, the 106 pounder, placed at the Ironman. He won the Dvorak, so he's in a prime position to win state as a freshman, which is obviously he would then join the elite club of you, myself, Cal, and Donald Cannon as a freshman state placer, and then obviously him and Cal would be the only two freshman state champions. So yeah, he's doing well. They have some really good other kids. Brody Sindel, obviously Brad Sindel wrestled with you, right,
Yeah.
at Harlem. Yeah, and then they have a few other kids that are really really solid. Obviously, the other twin Cassiope is at 113 pounds, and he's doing well.
Bruno.
So yeah, yeah. So the Hananiga team is doing really well. Harlem's just kind of getting their system back. Jake Messing just took over, so he's just kind of getting into the groove of the season and kind of getting everybody organized. I think he's doing really well. I have a video that I'm going to post that's so funny because it was a chaotic match. The kid isn't that the kid is not elite, right? But it was such an energetic, chaotic match. And Draheim is in the corner. Jake is in the corner. They're going nuts. The kid isn't listening. But he's wrestling so hard. This kid is all over the place. And I think he wins by 1 point. And it was fun. And then, Draheim finishes up and he's like, "Did you get that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got that." So, yeah, I mean, it's a good time, I think, for the area. It's just I'm trying to figure out a way to just constantly, um,
Pump some
put
content, build it,
yeah, yeah,
exposure.
just so that people get excited about being a part of wrestling
Yeah.
and yeah, so um, yeah, I definitely would love to come down. I definitely think February could be a good month. When does the season end?
So we enter postseason starting at the end of January. So they go team state first, and then they go individual.
Okay.
So January 27th is our first. That'd be the weekend is southern states is what they call it. They got like northern states, southern states. So the north teams in the north, there's like 9 or 10 of them, right? The top three from there and the top three from the south, there's 9 or 10 of us, will then meet for the team state championship. And actually that's gonna be at our high school, Oak Grove.
Okay.
I kind of navigated that, negotiated that with the Mississippi Wrestling Foundation, our umbrella. I was like, listen, if you want to grow the sport, you can't keep sticking every big tournament at the same two high schools, right? Just because they did well last year. That's kind of how the rules are set up. Whoever won last year gets to host it. Well, the same two teams have won everything. So, and they're a little bit more in the country area. How is that growing the sport? I'm in a big city. Don't you want to have these other high schools have visibility to it, right? Um, let's expose this community where I'm at to it. So they agreed, man. We're gonna host a state tournament, and that's in February 3rd. And then after that is individuals does the same, Southern states,
Well,
Northern states. But so with that, it's like you said, some of the questions I had for you earlier is really I'm just trying to like I'm at this point where am I trying I want to make sure I get the condition in, right? We're still in this building phase. A lot of it early on, it took so long sometimes in practices, and I try to give them like an hour and a half, try to keep them short and brief to keep their interest in the beginning. Realize that that just wasn't enough time to even get through half this like a technique throughout the day because they're just so fresh, right? Or new at the sport. So we bumped it to 2 hours, and we've kind of just been running at that, and it still takes up a lot of time to get through some technique. So I'm trying to build their stamina, trying to still get that condition in, working hard right now, and then trying to fine tune some stuff and trying to touch base on a lot of things we haven't yet, and some of that stuff's just hard to fight. Like arm bars. It's hard to teach how to get out of arm bar.
yeah,
They get put in a double and they're like, what do I do? And I go, I ain't got nothing for you, man.
yeah,
Like at your
well,
at your level, like you're not gonna all you can do is fight. Like you're not gonna be able to, like
yeah.
how do you get
Well,
out of legs? I mean, it's like for them getting out of legs, it's like that's a tough position for kids anywhere.
yeah,
So, we're working on some of those. We're showing them some stuff, but um we're working through different techniques, and I'm trying to figure out where to fine tune and keep going, and then keep pressing the gas on conditioning for a little bit, and then tapering off probably sometime. And obviously we got to taper back off and how to peak in January,
yeah. The
February.
unfortunate thing is like, especially with just new, new wrestlers, you're not really ever actually in a conditioned state because they don't wrestle in like they wrestle so chaotic that like even if they were the most in shape athletes, the way in which they wrestle is so hot and so like they're so up and down that like you're really not conditioned ever. Obviously, if an athlete is conditioned, they're running, on the, off out of practice and stuff like that. Um, and then, drilling to me, I don't care what level an athlete is. I think you need to create a a flow of a practice so that conditioning is built into the practice. So imagining like there is no wrestling, you're just doing stance and motion drills or you're just doing bear crawls or something like that. Like you would put people in this progressive way. So by the end of the practice, you're going as hard as possible, but you worked out for an hour and a half going, from one spot to the next. But yeah, I think it's hard, but it's really important to just do a system that, consistently develops the core areas. And then as they get that proficiency down, right? So if you get a kid who really knows how to, you know, uh, set up a high crotch and hit a high crotch to a double, right? Like that's what the first takedown is normally, right? For any like first year wrestler, I would assume. And then the other is like grabbing a guy and snapping him down and spinning behind, right? So those are the two takedowns that every first year wrestler should know because to be honest, that's all they need to know because they're going to take down through a football tackle type double, right? Or, high
Yeah,
crotch boom,
yeah,
or just grab a guy, snap him down and spin behind and get two.
yeah.
Um, Obviously, like you said, the bottom is a challenging position because if their arms go back, they're done because a chicken wing, an arm bar, like you
They're
can't
just
get
scooping.
out of a chicken wing. Like you
They're
just are
keeping
in
it.
it. Yeah.
They're like, how do you get out? I'm like,
Yeah.
so it's saying,
And again, so what I always do, and I always think about bottom, I always think about one, keeping your hands out front, but never fight for hand. Like a lot of coaches say, you got to get hand control. You got to get hand control. I think that is the worst advice you could possibly give because the moment a low level kid brings his arms back, they're now no longer his arms. They're the guy on top's arms.
okay.
So not fighting the hands on your feet. But again, the problem is when they get to their feet, they don't get called for stalling. So they can just stay behind
This
them the
guy go like
whole time.
this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I
just
would say that
wiggle.
yeah, so if you can get to your feet, um, you avoid so many of the turns and stuff. I think
Yeah,
the problem comes when people stop and they go back here and then all of a sudden now they can't even build a base because their hands are,
yeah.
garnered useless.
I guess that's a
So
good way to kind of try to think about it. And how can I change it a little bit? Because I'm not really I guess I'm still trying to preach like on a stand up, and you got to have some hand control on a stand up, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Like
No, I
by the
mean,
time you get
honestly,
up to the feet, you got to be able to break a lock. You got to get some hands. You got to find them,
yeah, but when you
but
get
not
to your
go
feet,
searching. You're saying,
yeah. And thinking about like
yeah,
just
yeah,
the tripod position is 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 really the stand up. The stand up
yeah.
should be tripod, knee slide, tripod, knee
I'm
slide.
teaching it all wrong. You're about the third person that's talking about the damn tripod, and I'm thinking, I, I, I I've watched some videos on it. I got to go practice in the corner because I'm like,
Yeah.
I can do it,
Well, you know,
but I
I
guess I haven't shown him
I
a tripod, and I got to show him. I got to get on this tripod for him. I got
yeah.
to show him a tripod and say, forget everything else we've been doing, just do this tripod.
Well, again, I think one thing that is hard too is like once you understand back pressure,
That's it.
you can do more of a stand up,
Yeah.
like a traditional stand up because you're going backwards into them.
But it's hard
But
to get that because the top guy don't even know how to give back pressure.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like just getting in a tripod is such a good way to start because even a low level top wrestler will slide off the top. They don't even know how to break the hips down.
Yeah.
So tripods are, I would say that that's a good start and just getting people to their feet. Once they get to their feet, you know, you know, you got to defend, lift and return. And, once you do that, then it's just like find the hands, peel them, get the hell out. So,
Yeah. I'm gonna have
um,
to work on that. That's kind of one of those key things because just trying to help them a little bit on bottom. They get caught those first times they got caught some of those moves they've never seen. Like, coach, what is that? And I'm like, that's called a double
yeah.
chicken wing, and you ain't getting out. So I'm in the
Yeah.
corner, I feel bad, but it's like at that point I'm just kind of mute. I'm like, oh
Yeah. That or, cradle. It's like, how do you teach a kid like a cradle I am not afraid of at all because I almost will let people get me in a cradle because I don't think that they can take me to my back because I know I can grab the hands, I can stand up my posture and be fine. But a kid who doesn't know that, once they get they don't even know sometimes that they can push their knee away from their head. Once they put their
yeah.
knee by their head, they're like, "Oh, I'm done." It's like, "No, no, you can extend your leg and it's okay."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They just don't know what
Yeah.
they don't know. They don't
Yeah.
they're still trying to figure out their bodies. And they'll ask me some questions that are pretty funny. And they're like, Coach, what if I could do this? And they'll make it it's the most shit. It's like the most crazy thing. Like the one was just like the arms all ripped on and he's on bottom. He's just holding onto his arm. He's like, what if I just do this? I'm like,
Yeah.
why would you do that when you can just like now rotate your little legs out and now you're free? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, it's like they want to
Yeah.
mold into things. And we have a lot of jujitsu kids and stuff. We have some of those. So you got to work with those guys to like not be turtles and not clamp in and hold on too long, right?
Yeah.
So they expose themselves so much, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's hard to
Yeah. I mean, it is a challenge, especially with inexperience because the exposure aspect, so much of wrestling is just a feel of like where my danger is, and I'm not going to let myself go
that's
to
it.
that danger.
Yeah,
Um, we got to a point where if somebody put a half Nelson in, we were going to, pull our arm, we weren't going to let somebody run the half, but when they get a half in, they go, oh, well, I can't fight. Like, they don't even have necessarily a concept of what that means
yeah,
to wing down and fight. So,
yeah. We see
yeah, I
that a
mean,
lot.
it's,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
constant thing that you're hitting all the points that we're seeing, right? And it's that inexperience, and you've obviously seen a lot of it because it's like some of those you working on it and you keep working on some of the basics. Like that's the half. We've been doing it for a while. Like
yeah,
you can look away, you can peel that, you can wing down, but they just like will do it one time and the next time they're just like cranked all over.
yeah,
Uh, but they're getting better, dude. They're actually a pretty good team. They're a really good team. Um,
yeah.
it's
Well,
nice
that's
to
good to
have a
hear.
full, huh?
That's good to hear.
Good to have a full
Obviously,
lineup too, man. And we got some kids wrestling pretty well. We'll see. We'll see how it kind of finishes up. That's the thing, right? We got a couple of tough duels coming up here in January. It's gonna be pretty good as a team. Dual meets. We've only had three. We're 2-1. The one I wasn't there at, like, that's another thing. I'm not really sure if I'm understanding correctly. So, like, I don't ever recall this, but if we went to a meet, right? Say we went to a duel. I'm wrestling Belvedere and Harlem's wrestling Belvedere. If I blew my weight at 150, Am I out, or do I just get to go up to the next?
Yeah, you'd get to wrestle 157 unless it's a certification issue and then you don't get to wrestle.
So if I step on the scale and say I'm running wrestle 150 today and I don't make it, I can just like move up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All
I
right.
don't think I I'm pretty sure why.
Well, I don't want to hear that. I think we should forfeit because we lost. I think we should. They should have forfeit. I'm like, sure, I'll
I-
wrestle your guy, but you can forfeit. You blew weight, buddy. Get off. Like that's your fault. Like you said your
What's
weight
funny?
145. You should be 145, not 46. And no, you don't
Yeah,
get treated to go up. That's not how that works. You blew weight. You want to
yeah.
wrestle my guy? Sure, but we win.
I'm pretty sure you can just go up to the next weight class.
Ah, fuck that.
But
That's cheating, dude. That's cheating. That's stupid.
yeah.
That's making wrestling bad. So
Well,
you can forfeit and
I,
then exhibition, my guy. All right. So anyway, we lost to that team, and they're all their kids like missed all their weights were all over, which is bad for us because like you should beat them when they go up, right?
yeah.
But I also
Well,
just
I think
rather
that's, I mean, again, that's the hard part about coaching inexperienced wrestlers and how to know what weight cutting is, or not weight cutting, but just like making weight in general. So, a lot of JV tournaments actually will do blocked weights, I think. Although I haven't not actually seen that as much lately, but I'm pretty sure there's some tournaments that do blocked weights where you just like, weigh in and you have 8 kids
yeah
close to weight, they go in a tournament. Yeah, I mean, I think from what you've told me today, I think the only thing that I would encourage you to remind yourself is to allow to make sure that your competitive side doesn't get too activated, because when you think about developmental wrestling in general as a program, the reality is, like, to create a program where you can go, oh, these kids are wrestlers, it's going to take at least 10 years, because you need kids that are starting at 8, 9 years old who have the feel of rolling around and understand what the basic moves are. So from what you are doing from the ground up, a lot of it has to do with creating efficient systems, whether it's fundraising systems, whether it's practice systems,
yeah
whether it's coaching systems where you tell coaches like, hey, this is the plan. Like, in when you're in a match, right, in a tournament match, do you have a strategy as far as who is going to yell in the corner, or are you just going to have both coaches yell as loud as possible? So there's things like match director, where you have one coach, the one that's instructing the athlete, the other one's looking at the time and the situation, explaining to the other coach to know the situation, right? It's, third period, 35 seconds left, he's down by one, um, you know, blah blah blah, right? So
never
you
thought
need
about
to
that.
yeah, you need to create more systems, as far as like, imagine you had 14 kids who are all state champions. Now what do you do as far as a daily process? What's your practice look like with 14 state champions, right? You warm up, you do gymnastics, you get into your drilling, your high crotch, your single legs, your front headlocks, your clearing of the front headlocks, your clearing of your 2-on-1s, your clearing of your underhooks, and then you move into maybe you start breaking down some technique of, hey, we're going to look into covering this specific area, whether it's wrestling out of the legs, or maybe you're thinking about something else entirely, like how you different turn, right? Maybe a gable series on top, right? And then maybe you get into your live wrestling. So I would encourage you to just think about systems, as opposed to, well, Johnny is getting pinned in that half Nelson, we got to stop that half Nelson. It's like, well, Johnny just started wrestling, and unfortunately, Johnny's not going to make it to the promised land um, quite that fast, unless he was, super, super dedicated.
Yeah.
And if he is, then he'll figure it out.
I,
So
no, and I appreciate that, and I think some of your school of wrestling follows that, right? And I think that's also where we've been doing is that's um where we have shown as improvement is I've been focusing on trying to do that. I'm not going to just every day walk in without a game plan and it doesn't change
yeah,
based on the results of that weekend because I can't react to that. That's just not
yeah.
that's not how it can go. You're going to see everything that weekend, but that doesn't mean we go to it. Like I've never shown a throw. We don't know how to throw. I'm not going to show throws. Like I'm
But
not
you're a
showing
thrower.
maybe not anymore. I probably hurt my back. I don't know. I probably haven't shown it because I'm probably like, I don't know how to do it. But I get
Oh,
to
you're a
lucky.
headlock man, dude. What are you talking about?
That just was feel. So,
Yeah.
but we've never shown a headlock, and I don't think I will because otherwise that's all they look for. So I've made it an emphasis,
Yeah.
like I'm not showing them a headlock for so long because it's like now I'm even at the point like they're trying it and they've never even done it, and I'm like
Yeah.
they're just seeing it and they just want to throw it, and I'm like, do you show them or do you not? I don't know. Do I?
Yeah, I think obviously you have to, again, with systems, I think you have to incorporate areas where you can play, where you can go, okay, here's a position, right? And you don't even have to call it a headlock, you can call it a head and arm, right? So it's not so negative in your mindset. You can go, okay, what does it feel like when you get a guy in an elbow tie, right? So he's got a collar tie, you've got an elbow tie, you got a collar tie. So now you just like, that's a head and arm. It's not a really headlock, but you can, you got to find ways to for them to just develop an overall feel. You don't have to have, you know, uh, a super long experience, but sometimes you have to have like a play
Yeah.
where the guys are just, learning positions and figuring it out on their own. Because again, like you said, a lot of that's feel. So, if it's just feel, well, how do they develop feel other than just like playing in that position? So, you do have to manage like how much is it rigid and then how much is it feel and play. So obviously that's a hard thing to do
Right. There
with
are
the new guys.
situations that are a little easier to set up a field too. And I was thinking more like I don't have to show them a big headlock, but there's a sag headlock that's pretty
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a nice little sag headlock, right? You have to work in 50-50 positions over and under hooks. So we were working on some of those, right? And inside trips, just trying different things. And those concepts are real hard for them to get. Just trying to I really would like my big guys to be like Mako and try to get a foot sweep, but
Well, this is the last thing I'll
yeah,
ask, and then I'll let you go. But
yeah.
so how much are you wrestling these days?
Oh man, I try to hop in as much as I can. But the
Yeah.
problem here is that like I hopped in a lot yesterday. Like I'll hop in any day I can. If I got multiple coaches in the room, I'll hop in. And I do hop in anyway. I'll hop in on a regular basis with kids and get in there and feel and put myself in those positions and do things right. But it's been a little hit or miss sometimes, right? There was another coach that had some wrestling experience, but he's in the military, so he's traveling quite a bit. Ideally, if he was there and then this other coach and there's four of us, it'd have been a lot more. But when it's only me that knows it, I'm kind of having to walk around a little bit more than I would like. So I hop in when I can, but I have to also go around. So,
I got you.
but I am
Cool.
wrestling quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to headline that wrestling card that you put on in the off season, let people know what wrestling looks like.
And no, dude, no. Uh,
Yeah. Well, you
better.
you don't want to get back on the mat, compete,
Oh
or
man,
not just compete, but I mean, you just did it a couple years ago in
I felt like
Belvedere.
I was gonna die, dude.
Well,
Like I could never
that
recover from the first 2 minutes. Like you said, like kids don't ever get in shape. Like I couldn't recover after 2 minutes. I was dead the rest of the day.
well, I don't want to critique your wrestling, but you went way too hard,
Oh, I don't
way
know how to
too
go any other
fast.
way. That's it,
I,
dude.
you
Like
gotta you gotta let yourself just feel, relax, man. You
that's what I
you
do
know.
nowadays. But it's like at that point, I'm not gonna let Kyle Larson beat me. Get out of here. I hope you hear
Hopefully,
that.
hopefully Kyle
So
hears
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you end up wrestling? Did you wrestle him? He
Yeah.
didn't wrestle, did he?
I wrestled Kyle first, and then
Oh,
I wrestled
okay.
some other young kid from East that I'm not gonna let
Okay,
beat me
okay.
either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I just wrestled some kid that's terrible lost.
You wrestled so hard though. I do remember that. That was funny.
But I
I
had
would
just
not
run a
wrestle that hard.
marathon, so I could run forever. But dude, wrestling is
Well,
different.
yeah,
Like
wrestling is different.
so yesterday, I went on like we did shark bait, right? And there's a new kid in there that's never been in there. And I actually told I went for 9 minutes with the kids. It's really long, but I just put him in there and let him go. And there's
Yeah,
a brand new guy, so he went out for like 30 seconds, and
yeah,
so then I was like, I got it. So I hopped in for about 5, and then one of the other coaches hopped in. He hopped in for about 4.
yeah.
That's what
Well,
I
the
paced
other day I
myself at
wrestled.
that point. I just absorb. They're trying to move me. I can just float through it. I'm not
Yeah,
tired.
yeah. The other day I wrestled for 3 hours.
Oh, geez.
I did, yeah, three privates. private lessons, and they're pretty hard.
Live,
Um, yeah,
hard.
hard.
Yeah,
Well, actually, the way that I do privates is really a lot about drilling,
yeah,
hard drilling in positions and stuff. So I actually think it's harder than live because live I get in live, I get a lot of breaks because if I get a takedown, that's 45 seconds that if I really, really want you to get out, I can hold you down as long as I want. So I get to let you do, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
drilling is actually more difficult. You know this, obviously.
yeah. Oh, yeah. A
Um,
drill match is incredibly, but I've had a lot of fun. I want to do it for an
yeah.
hour. I would love to go for 3 hours, to be honest with you. Like, you're my idol. I can't, like, I'm not there.
Well, I think that, I will, I'll always encourage you, but I think the more that you figure out how to get private lessons with your guys individually, the faster that they're going to get better because um, I just 100% believe that that's the fastest way to the top is getting that feel
Gotta
first
feel it.
and so if you can get that going, I think that will really help some of these kids. Even lifting, think of just lifting and returning is you can show that better than you can explain that. And take them a couple times to lift you up and put you down, and they go, "Oh, coach, I know how to do this
Oh,
now."
you
So
heavy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
No,
that's why
we
you got to
slowed
lose
it
that
down.
weight.
Like, so and I know we can get off here in a minute too, but that is like the focus. That's been one of probably the biggest disappointments is not just being able to go a lot longer with them, but when you
Yeah,
have one guy in the room, you got to hit a lot of kids. You're hopping in with each of them. I typically like to go around and feel it with all of them.
yeah,
So when I go around and I show moves, I get in there with the partners and I say, let me feel it. And we work through it. So I work through all the different pairs and I
yeah,
have to feel it through it. But that's different than working with one kid over and over and over because I got to move on, right? So I
yeah,
try to feel it that way, help them there and keep moving. Over the break, one of the first breaks we had, I said, let me split out these kids to where they're at. And that I saw a huge jump at that point. Like I split out into three different groups based on where they're currently at. I just met them where they're at. These guys are wrestling a little better than these guys. These guys still really need some help here. These guys really need help. And then so I could give them more individualized attention at that point, even though it's smaller groups, but it's me and six guys, me and eight guys, a couple groups for the whole week. So I just ran three groups, 3 days. So I'd go, it was a long days. I was wrestling about 5, 6 hours a day
yeah,
that for that whole week. But it was necessary because these guys need to get better and start seeing things. And these kids need to still kind of learn their penetration step. It's been a month and they're still making mistakes and they're getting better. But if I could just give them a little focus, they clean it up.
yeah. And once you have like a group, they get to really develop the culture in the room and stuff. So that's why like once you have four, if you have four really good guys, man, you're gonna get six real quick, and then you're gonna get eight real quick. So it's such an advantage to get a couple who know how to do things and get to lead everybody else because obviously as a coach, your job actually isn't to lead everybody. Your job is to
Build leaders.
create leaders
Yeah.
so that they can do it collectively. Because again, we talk about this a lot, but I didn't necessarily um, learn how to wrestle from my coaches. I learned how to wrestle from people like you who were such an example that I could look at and go, "Oh, what's he doing? I'm just going to do what he does." And because I wanted to emulate you, it was really easy for me to just follow. And
Get better.
once you follow, then there you go. So,
Yeah. Well,
but yeah,
we have a
uh,
65 pounder that has wrestling. He's actually pretty good. He hasn't wrestled in about 5 years, but he had a background in Utah, grew up with it, knows it, and he's actually gotten cleaner and better every day. And he goes around and does some of that. So there's mine, but he's a senior, so I'm building the other ones. But I do want
yeah,
to pick your brain afterwards, like next, couple of days. Because I got to build this academy after. I want to build an academy like we've talked about, and just I got to get a club program up and going here. So there's some of that stuff that after season to continue and progress that I gotta get some better understanding about.
yeah, for sure. I'm always around and always
Hey,
good to
thanks for
catch
doing
up.
what you do, Dalton, man. I do appreciate it, and thanks for having me on. But if you can find some time to come out, let me know.
Yeah,
I'll split your
I'll
travel,
d
get you down here, and it's a 1 day trip if you can handle 13 hours in the car.
yeah, I'll definitely I'll ask the other half, and we'll
Yeah,
figure it out. I have no problem coming to visit you, and
love to have you guys both out.
yeah, it would be great.
All right.
So
Hey, man.
yeah, thanks again, and I'm sure people will love to hear how you're doing, and yeah, we'll talk soon.